What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Spike Podcast, NFC North Podcast. My name is Imorie, aka Lex, and today we're going to just kind of have a little quick update video. I haven't done one of these in a while. Let's talk about some of the worst and most disappointing teams this year in the NFL. Now, with all that being said, there's a lot of things up in the air this season. I think that the race for the NFC wildcard spot is heating up, and it's seeming like it's definitely going to come down to the wire in terms of, which team is actually going to secure that wildcard position. We've got the NFC North. 3 teams leading over every division in the NFC, so it's an overall shakeup. But, in this episode primarily, it's just going to be a quick update on a couple of things that, I think kind of threw a wrench in comparison to us a little over halfway through the season versus the beginning. Now, the number one thing I want to talk about being a Green Bay Packers fan is Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. Now, moving into this season, I think that, there's a lot of high expectations with Aaron Rodgers, especially coming off of his Achilles injury last year. I mean, considering the fact that he only lasted 4 plays, I think that the sky was definitely the limit for the Jets franchise. I think that, they allowed for Aaron to come in with a lot of, unique and maybe polarizing perspectives, and especially with the drama surrounding him missing a couple of practices at OTAs. I think that they definitely started off to a rough start to the season. There was a couple of moments, a couple of games in the first 4 weeks where Aaron Rodgers particularly shined. But since then, here we are rounding out Week 13. It's Saturday, or Week 13 actual day. Game is tomorrow. I think that there's a lot to be up in the air. I think that, Aaron's been able to, definitely kind of fend off a lot of the naysayers with his appearances on the Pat McAfee show every Tuesday. But I mean, with even all of that being said, I think that, as a Green Bay fan, I know what Aaron's ceiling is. I know what he's capable of doing. And the fact that he was able to bring Devontae Adams back to the Jets, the fact that Robert Saleh was let go early in the season, which is a fairly polarizing, coaching change. I think that, with that team and that regime, obviously the offense isn't going. Garrett Wilson is not really performing at the level that he should be. I think that there's just a lot of things up in the air that, as Jets fans, I'm sure that they're just pissed. And, it goes to say, like, moving into next season, obviously the Jets' playoff hopes are crushed, especially being in the AFC. And I think that there's a lot up in the air, especially regarding as to what they're going to be able to do in the offseason. I mean, with a lot of the players they brought in at Aaron's request, or so-and-so, just good business, but I really think it was Aaron's request, they're putting themselves in a very, very, very dismal point, especially with the claims coming out of, I'm not sure how true these are, but with the claims coming out that Aaron Rodgers is saying that he doesn't necessarily want to play at the New York Jets next season. Now, with that being said, I think Tyrod Taylor is actually I think that would be a good thing for them. If they're able to alleviate some of the cap hits from Aaron not playing for the team, which I'm not exactly sure what the contractual obligations are there. So there's definitely some room there that could be up or down. But, I think that Tyrod Taylor, I remember when he was with the New York Giants, I saw a lot of potential in him. And even in the games he's come in and kind of united the thing, I think that the Jets just need a completely fresh start. With the firing of Robert Saleh, my hope is that, they actually pick up a good head coach. And it looks like this year, there's a lot of candidates up. We got Belichick. We got, obviously, Saleh's still in the pool to come back. But obviously that don't do that. But, there's Belichick, Saleh. We got Ben Johnson. We got the DC from the Lions. Hell, Jeff Hafley from the Packers, even though he's only been there there's just so many possible coaching changes that can happen. I think that for the New York Jets, the best thing that could possibly happen for them is to completely overhaul, eat their costs, maybe pick up a couple of cheap rookies and try to rebuild this program in a new direction, because obviously the Aaron Rodgers way and like the whole, facet of the stigma that was coming behind hiring such a legacy quarterback has obviously not worked out in their favor. Now, with that being said, it's honestly not something that I'd love to see. I love all competitive teams to be football. I love for all teams in the league to be competitive when it comes to football. I think that I really would love also for, a lot of things to actually work out. I think that a lot of these older players kind of may not have the same level of malleability as far as which systems they're effective in. I'm sure that there's a lot of, coaching restrictions that come along with, the temperaments and stuff that's going to go into play. And with Aaron being such a legacy player, a 4-time NFL MVP, Super Bowl winner, I'm sure that he just came in with a little bit too much hot. And honestly, I can't say anything other than, that things just didn't work out. I'm not going to allude to him being an ineffective leader. I'm not going to say anything because obviously I'm not at the practice for the New York Jets. This should be at the practices for the New York Jets. But, with all that being said, I think that, that organization as a whole has a lot of bad things coming in the future. And the second organization I'm going to move on to, and this is, as much as I love to hate on them and as much as they have a lot of problems, but it's the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott is coming off a hamstring injury, something that's, looking to be pretty dismal. Cooper Rush is coming in, and unfortunately they're winning games, just kind of hoping they're tanking, chances for the season. And on the show last week, I had this phrase, it's called Happy Tanksmas. And I think that, like I said, we're at the point in the season where if you don't have playoff hopes and you don't have the offensive pieces in play to actually contend, it's in your best interest to lose football games so that you can garner fresh picks, especially with, Mike McCarthy seemingly being, up in the air as far as the respect of the fans of the Dallas Cowboys organization. Jerry Jones has come out and said, and outside of that, Jerry Jones is a person alone as a GM and owner. He's actually been absolutely paramount. I think that he's definitely come in and, riled up things for the Dallas Cowboys organization that didn't need to be. The whole interview with the guys at 105 through the fan, the whole disrespect with how he handled the offseason, the entire fucking perspective of the Cowboys fans, absolutely being fed up with, 30 years of losing since Jimmy Johnson's left. They have a lot of things in the air, and Dak Prescott's obviously not delivering. He's been hurt. He just became the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. He's not even playing the football game. So obviously next year that's going to have a huge hit on their cap space. I'm really interested to see, maybe in the offseason. I mean, they've had a few glimmers of hope on their defense in their past couple of games, and I think that, with all that being said, they had a huge game against the Commanders, but with all that being said, that's not anything you can garner up to good football. It's not. It's simply not. It's simply just a matter of certain people being in the right place at the right time. And, sure, occasionally, even the worst teams, hell, even the 0-16 Lions, look at them now. They're able to turn the organization around and win a couple of football games. Hell, now they've, built off that momentum consistently. And now look at them. They're in contention for the Super Bowl. The Dallas Cowboys have had, 3 back-to-back 12-5 seasons, if I'm not mistaken. And every year, they've just ended up in the exact same place where they did before. They were not able to build off of the momentum that they had set previously. Now, and I'm going to attribute this to toot my own horn here. Since they took that big-ass loss to my Green Bay Packers last year in the playoffs, I believe the final score was 44-30 or something like that. But at one point, it was 44. It was 44-10 or something like that. It was an ass whipping by a bunch of rookies. And since then, the Cowboys haven't won at home. And I'm wondering if there's a psychological block that's going on with there. I think that Jerry Jones obviously didn't make the proper decisions that he needed to in order to pick off the available players that he had for caliber in the offseason. Like letting Derrick Henry slip to the Ravens was the biggest fumble ever, considering that he has a residence in Dallas. Complete failure. And, for Jerry Jones to be such a pivotal and high-strung, owner, he wants to talk more than Mike McCarthy does as a head coach. And I've spoken about this on the show. Mike McCarthy doesn't exactly have the wiggle room or doesn't exactly have the depth or doesn't exactly have, the number of coaches and his staff to actually be able to have a malleable football team. But, with all that being said, there's just a number of issues that are coming on simply because there's too many egos at play on that Dallas Cowboys team. Oh, C.D. Lamb hasn't even looked like a top 1 receiver, not top 20 receiver this year. And I'm not trying to be a hater because, like I said, all I want is to be competitive. I love shitting on the Dallas Cowboys, but at this point, it's sad to see America's team back in the 90s just deteriorate to be a second-rest XFL team in the NFC East division. Not to mention, the fact that the division, the Giants are trying to give them legs up by trading all their best players to Philly. Sure, that's giving Philly an edge, with Saquon Barkley coming up and being one of the best receivers in the entire league as far as rushing is concerned. But, Dallas Cowboys, you guys have some of the best, young talent coming out of your state. Texas football, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, obviously where Pat Mahomes went from. We have all these super high caliber high school players, which is something I'd like to see. And with all that being said, I think that there's a lot of things that we can go out here and just throw up in the window when it comes to what their options are going to be moving into next season, simply because of the decisions that they've made and the players they've invested in this season. So, and the final thing I want to talk about before I end the show, just a little quick update thing is the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons. Now, obviously, I live in the city of Atlanta. I live in North Druid Hills, about 8 miles from the stadium. I'm a diehard Packers fan, but man, the Atlanta Falcons they're not playing any good football. And I'll insert the video. I had my grandpa's, thoughts on, Kirk Cousins and his whole regime, and his thoughts were not that actually really weren't that good. This is what he had to say right here before I finish. What do you think about Kirk Cousins, though?
Kirk Cousins ain't nothing. I just told you that. He a half-big quarterback, overpaid, everything. I got to see the rookie quarterback lose the game to him.
Now, with all that being said, my grandpa's he's an old timer, dude. He's back from the days of leather helmets. And if he has these things to say, I think that, obviously there's some validity behind Michael Penix learning behind Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is supposed to be providing a MVP caliber season. He got a great contract. The Falcons suffered that issue with the colluding issues coming off of the team. And I think that, coming off the, that whole pick thing in the offseason. I think that, dude, honestly, they're just not delivering enough, the Bucs are creeping up behind them in a division. And without them winning that division, they have no shot at a playoff. Which means Kirk Cousins, coming off of an Achilles injury, was literally paid one of the highest salaries in the NFL and didn't deliver anything to the fans except for more disappointment. So, especially with, the Falcons do have a couple of big wins over, the Eagles. They beat the Saints once, I think. They had a big loss to the Saints, a couple of weeks ago. And, it's just disappointment to see because, the NFC as a whole right now is kind of, like I said, it's wide open, like I said at the beginning of this video. And I think that, the Green Bay Packers are obviously, we're shoo-in. We're shoo-in. We're fired up. Jordan Love has had 2 games without an interception. Although we are going into Detroit, I'll talk more about that on the show for tomorrow. But, guys, there's a lot of things to take into account with these 3 teams, Maybe the Cowboys are able to turn it around next year, Maybe the Falcons are able to figure something out, And, and then again, also, maybe, there's so many things that we could even take up with these 3 teams I talked about. But with all that being said, guys, I'd love for you guys to thank you guys so much for checking out the show. I appreciate everybody who's subscribed, everybody's liking. I'm going to try to do more little quick updates about this and kind of follow a lot of the issues and shit. But, if I were even closer to the Chicago Bears, they almost made this list. But I think that they're in a prime position to upset a couple of teams. We'll talk about that more on the show tomorrow. But, with all that being said, my name is Imorie, a.k.a. Lex. Thank you guys for checking out the Spike Podcast. We love you. We'll see you soon.